let's design some brand new fossil Pokemon. That's right, if you're new here, my name is Tamvalley Productions, and for the past year I've been designing a Pokemon region based on California, known as Orova. I've designed about 30 new Pokemon so far, and now it's time to add to that growing collection by creating some fossil Pokemon. This class of Pokemon has always been one of my absolute favorites. I love how their designs fit the Pokemon types, but they also look so foreign and mysterious due to their ancient age. We have a lot of potential routes to go down, since the American West has a rich history of fossil excavation, both from the age of dinosaurs and the recent Ice Age. So let's create some fossils. To begin, I want to create a conventional dinosaur Pokemon. So the obvious route here is to turn to California's list of discovered dinosaurs. Unfortunately, there aren't too many options, because California was actually mostly underwater during much of the main dinosaur era, with most fossils being found further east in Utah and Colorado. So, there's not too much room for a dinosaur to roam. However, there were small slivers of modern-day Southern California that existed as shorelines at the time. One fossil was discovered in Carlsbad in the 1980s, known as Elidopelta, which scientists concluded was a type of small ankylosaur, the dinosaur famously known for its club tail, rows of fused armor plating and spikes on its face, and more. But we need more than that as inspiration. So what if we combine this type of dinosaur, an ankylosaur, with the idea of another famous Southern California phenomenon, earthquakes? I think the ankylosaur's anatomy lends itself well to that comparison. With the way the club tail could be used as a hammer to strike down on the ground and create seismic vibrations, and its spiky armor reminds me of asphalt that gets ruptured during an earthquake. Plus, I don't think we could make a California region without including at least one Pokemon with a tie-in to earthquakes. Introducing Ankylosaurus, the Pebble Dino Pokemon. Ankylosaurus lived millions of years ago, when much of Orova was underwater and what remained was harsh desert. In this desolate environment, Ankylosaurus were likely herbivores and grazed on small roots that grew in patches in the desert. As these roots were hard to come by, Ankylosaurus were thought to use the tail on its body to stir up mud fields to search for nutrients underneath. Fossil records indicate that their tails form thick mallet-like endings. Their habit of being herbivores derives from real Ankylosaurs, which had those beaks to strip leaves and roots from the ground. That would make Ankylosaurus a pretty gentle Pokemon, especially compared to Pokemon like Tyrunt, whom it lived alongside and was rivals with. That's why it has that layer of mud and rock on its back. It was like a shell as a natural protection from a more violent dinosaur Pokemon that preyed on Ankylosaurus. Of course, Ankylosaurus does gain an evolution just like every other fossil Pokemon. Introducing Armorwreck, the Quake Dino Pokemon. Despite their fearsome appearances, Armorwreck ate exclusively plants and soil just like Ankylosaurus, giving them enough mineral to harden the mud and rocks on their backs. Their tails were much more developed, weighing enough to create large craters in the ground when swung. This defense mechanism was used against predatory foes like Tyrantrum and could send massive shockwaves through the ground that held the same strength as real seismic activity. I think Armorwreck works great as the natural evolution to Ankylosaurus, with both those massive spikes on its back that are meant to look like cracked asphalt, and a giant club tail that it could swing around both to find food and in battle. Either way, this Pokemon would have full control over the ground and shockwaves, which I think ties in well with California's reputation of fault lines and earthquakes. It's easy to imagine a Pokemon like Armorwreck roaming around desert landscapes in ancient Orova. Maybe this Pokemon, both based on its appearance and its ground typing, is thought to have been the ancient ancestor of Pokemon like Torterra. And finally, I decided to give this Pokemon a new ability that ties into its seismic powers, Aftershock. With this ability, seismic-based moves have a 10% chance of dealing damage to all non-ground types on the battlefield on each of the next 3 turns, or something like that. I haven't worked at the exact percentages. Anyway, now that we've met the desert-dwelling, earthquake-inducing Pokemon family that derives from the club fossil, let's go in the complete opposite direction for our next Orovian fossil. As I mentioned before, California was mostly underwater during the age of the dinosaurs, making it impossible for most big land dinosaurs to thrive. But that doesn't mean there weren't any at all. In fact, the oceans were home to many species of now extinct reptiles, like Mosasaurus, Plesiosaurs, and Ichthyosaurus. They're all species of aquatic dinos that were reptiles, closely related to snakes and gators in modern day, but they evolved to look like dolphins, whales, and fish. That's a fascinating process to me. The idea that an unrelated species of animal can adapt so well to its environment that it takes on the trait of totally separate kinds of animals. So what if we made an aquatic dinosaur Pokemon with that idea of convergent specialized evolution? an expert predator in ancient Orovian waters that had specialized fins and flippers, among other hunting mechanics, and we can base it off of the Californiasaurus, which is a type of ichthyosaur that was, surprise, found in California. Introducing Saraft, the fish lizard Pokemon. Saraft existed millions of years ago when the waters of Orova were much warmer. Despite being ancestors of modern reptilian Pokemon, they developed remarkably similar to many water types. They possess rock-like rear fins made of cartilage that cut through water and gave them great speed. Though it may be a product of the revival process, it's possible that these Pokemon had a hardened sediment layer to protect and balance their bodies. So I based Saraft off of both the phenomenon of convergent evolution and the idea that a reptile could perfect the traits of fish, but also some nautical themes, such as a rudder or a keel on a boat being represented through its tail fin, which is where its name comes from, both raft and aft, meaning the back of a boat. I wanted to show how this Pokemon was an expert swimmer and at the top of the food chain of its time due to those techniques. I think they would have lived in the open ocean waters, preying on pretty much any type of water type it could find. Of course, I had to give Saraft an evolution as well. Introducing Balasaur, the sea lizard Pokemon. In ancient Orovian waters, Balasaur were considered ferocious apex predators. These Pokemon developed fins of thick cartilage that cut through water like blades, and a gaping jaw that could swallow gelatin whole. They had ease of motion thanks to a firm coating of ocean sediment that they could accumulate or shake off their bodies with ease, allowing them to achieve varying degrees of buoyancy to catch prey at different depths. So I based Balasaur both on the Californiasaurus, but also Mosasaurus, massive extinct reptiles that more closely resemble crocodiles. Building off of its previous evolution, Balasaur would have the same features but much more advanced, such as a stretchable jaw, rock-hard fins, and the same rocky layer that coats most of its jaw and mainly its underside. This was an intentional design decision both to give it some natural camouflage, so that if you were looking down at it from above, it would blend in with the ocean floor, and from the sides, it would blend in with the water. I also decided that having a sediment layer and possibly rocks in its stomach that it would swallow to gain balance, would be inspired by real-life ichthyosaurs and plesiosaur behaviors of eating rocks known as gastroliths, to control how heavy or light they were in the water, since the rocks would weigh them down. It's also reminiscent of a ballast, the physics principle in which a ship is better balanced and more efficient in its motion when a layer of sand or heavy objects is placed in its hull. Overall, I'm proud of both this design and execution. I think it looks very intense while it's still being a Pokemon. Finally, let's move away from the age of dinosaurs and create a final pair of fossil Pokemon based on much more well-known and well-established periods of the California fossil record. I want to create a few Pokemon based on the La Brea tar pits, which are famously known in the Los Angeles area as a place where ancient animals often got stuck in, and were preserved very well. Studying the remains of tar pit mammals have given scientists a massive understanding of California's ecosystem during that last ice age. I already made one tar pit Pokemon based off of Aerodactyl, but that was a concept designed around the first tar pit Pokemon to be excavated in Orova. You could revive it in a science lab next to this tar pit, perhaps like an early effort to resurrect fossil Pokemon before Kanto's Cinnabar lab developed and standardized their more reliable technology. So this is essentially a prototype fossil Pokemon, and it was definitely a mistake. If you want to learn more about Orovian Aerodactyl, you can watch my regional form video, linked below. But this time, I want to make some Pokemon that were successfully revived from footprints in the tar pit, and were much more recent extinct Pokemon that existed closer to modern times than any other fossil Pokemon before. I'm more intrigued by two simpler animals, the direwolf and the Smilodon, also known as the saber-toothed tiger. Both of these are very well known in California, the latter actually being California state fossils and one of my most requested additions to the Orova region. So it seems fitting that we could make a pair of counterpart Pokemon, or rivals. One based on the direwolf, and an ancestor to many canine Pokemon like Lycanroc and Houndoom, while the other is a saber-toothed tiger Pokemon and an ancestor to many feline Pokemon like Luxray or Pyroar. Both of these animals were actually found in the La Brea tar pits, often side by side, indicating that they were possibly fighting over the same prey and they got stuck together. Of course, we'll have to add an added element through a secondary type or something to show why these Pokemon were rivals to one another during Orova's Ice Age. First, let's showcase the direwolf. Introducing Lupavile, the giant dog Pokemon. Lupavile existed in ancient Orova, where they were near the top of the food chain. They possessed quick reflexes and quick speeds that allowed them to prey on much weaker and smaller Pokemon, such as ancient bug and normal types. Thus, they're thought to be some of the earliest Pokemon to develop Dark-type fighting techniques. They're thought to have had a negative relationship with ancient humans, often poaching villages at night. I decided to give this Pokemon the Dark typing, since it would be more malevolent and an enemy of Ice Age humans of Orova. Maybe this Pokemon would steal from villages or cause harm to humans, which inspired modern depictions and beliefs about wolves and wolf-like Pokemon being tricksters or enemies of humanity. That's also reflected through the fact that Lupavile acts as a bully or a predator to Pokemon smaller than itself, showing how this Pokemon is more cowardly, and it's befitting in the Dark typing. I also wanted to give that Dark typing as an added element to set this carnivore apart from its saber-toothed tiger counterpart. So the Dark type represents its status as a villain, which will be in contrast to the Sabertooth, who will be more of a hero. That gives a nice supervillain and superhero flair to these two, which I think is fitting for a region based on California, home of the film industry and thus many comic book movies. With that in mind, let's hop over to Lupavile's counterpart. Introducing Saberleer, the giant cat Pokemon. Saberleer lived during the last Ice Age as fearless hunters. Fossil records indicate that they thrived in a multitude of environments ranging from cold tundras to humid chaparrals. They exclusively preyed on Pokemon much larger than themselves, such as Mamoswine. Thus, they're thought to have had an unflinching spirit. Ancient Orovians likely had a mutually beneficial relationship with these cats, who fended off packs of Lupavile. So, Saberleer is pretty much the opposite of Lupavile in most ways. It's instead based on superheroes and the idea of bravery. It hunted Pokemon bigger than itself, showing how it was fearless, and that it defended itself and humanity from greater threats, like a superhero. I think they're great counterpart Pokemon. Lupavile could be exclusive to Pokemon Carbon in the canine tar footprint, and Saberleer could be exclusive to Pokemon Silicon in the feline tar footprint. Overall, I've thought for months about how to make its saber-toothed tiger Pokemon and incorporate its famous strength and power into a Pokemon. I thought about doing maybe an elemental design with steel, fire, electric, or ice fangs. But once I learned about its real-life place at the top of the food chain shared with direwolves, I knew I had to keep it simple and make a pair of Pokemon with a nice balanced concept. Which one do you like best? Let me know below. And let me know what other Orovian fossil Pokemon introduced today you like best and would make it onto your team in Pokemon Carbon and Silicon. My fan-made Pokemon game concept set in the Orova region. We've been making great progress on the region in the past few months. We have 39 total designs, including starters, bugs, regional forms, and now fossils. That's about a third of what I want the total decks to be. I'm happy you're enjoying this region and its Pokedex, which I plan on finishing up in the next 4 or 5 months, while we begin to flesh out the game's story, characters, and more, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for more content.